Hi, my name is Ingrid, and today I'm going to show you how to make this Mosaic slip dress. So, a few things I want to say before I get into the video. This isn't a very beginner tutorial. You should know how to knit, you should know how to purl, you should have a basic knowledge of knitting. You don't need to know how to mosaic knit, which is the style we're using. So you can be new at this. This is a pretty basic, beginner for mosaic knitting tutorial. Other than that, that's it. You can still be a beginner, but I wouldn't make this one of your first projects. I would start with something simpler. Okay, so other than that, sizes. I'm a small medium, and I'll show you how to get the size for your body. It's pretty simple. You can make it longer, you can make it shorter, you can make it wider, you can make it skinnier. I'll show you how to do that. If you're doing the same size as me, I'll tell you the exact stitch count that you need to cast on and how many rows you need to do. If you're not, I'll show you what calculations you need to make just to make it a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. So it'll be really simple and anyone can figure it out. The other thing is yarn. So normally I would, be a big advocate for, find whatever yarn's the cheapest, find yarn at a thrift store, reuse yarn, good for the environment. For this, because it's very slinky, it's very heavy, right? Which is part of the way that the dress works. I think if we were using some kind of wool, it wouldn't work. So this is bamboo yarn. If you don't want to use the yarn that I'll show you in the video, the yarn that I used, I would recommend using some kind of silk yarn, something like that that's super shiny and gives off that slinky material. Because I think that obviously you can make, you can use whatever you want, but if you're using wool or cotton, it's going to have a very different feel and it won't be as nice. So, there's that. If you are buying the yarn that I'm using, which I would recommend, or, another silk yarn, and obviously you don't have to use the colors that I used. I thought these colors look really nice together, but you can use whatever colors you want. You need at least two. I'll have a link in the description of the yarn that I used. If you are gonna buy the yarn that I used, I would ask that you please use my link in the description. I'll have the link for both Amazon and Michaels because it's an affiliate link, which means that I get a commission on every ball of yarn that you buy using that link. So that would be great for me. Yeah, so depending on when you're watching this video, it may or may not be an affiliate link, but anyway, it's in the description, so it's super easy for you. It is kind of expensive, not gonna lie. If you find a cheaper alternative, you should probably use that. But again, I would recommend something like silk or bamboo that's super shiny and smooth because you want the feel of the dress, which is one of the nicest things. It's like $6, I think, a ball of yarn, maybe. Yeah. So, it's bamboo, which means that in theory it's eco-friendly. I don't know if it's eco-friendly or not because one way to turn bamboo into yarn is to use super, super harsh chemicals and a really bad work environment, which also means it's not ethical. So I don't know exactly if this yarn is sustainable. It's known as sustainable yarn. It may be, I don't know, I couldn't tell you that. Sorry. So if you have a more sustainable way of getting yarn like this, a cheaper way, go for that. I just happen to love the feel of this yarn because it gives the dress this really heavy, slinky feel. So other than that, if you have any questions, please let me know. It should be relatively easy to modify for your size. And yeah, just leave me a comment. Two last things quickly before I start the tutorial part. This necklace my sister made, you know, so it's ethical and sustainable. She reused beads she found in a thrift store. She has a Depop. I'll link it in the description, so if you like it, it'd be great if you could check out her page. The other thing is, my friend makes music, and some of the background music in this video is from her Soundcloud. So if you like any of the music, not all of it's from her Soundcloud, but some of it is. So just check it out. I'll also leave the link in the description.
Okay, so this is the yarn I'm using. I used 4 balls in total. Please ignore the pink. When you're not using that, you only need 2 different colors. So I used 2 balls of each color. And this is the knitting needles I used. They're just regular knitting needles. They're size 4, 3.5 millimeters. Anything around that size is fine. It doesn't need to be exact. Okay, so now we're going to cast on enough stitches to do the scalloped edging. So I'm like a small medium, right? And so I'm going to cast on 180 stitches. So how I figured out that amount of stitches to cast on is because first of all, you measure your body, you measure the widest part of your body. If it's where your stomach is, if it's where your butt is, if it's where your thighs are, that's what you want to do. So you're going to measure it all around with a measuring tape, and then you're going to divide that by 2, because we have a front and a back, so it's half the amount of inches, right? For example, I did where my hip/butt are, and I got 36 inches. I divided that in 2, and then I got 18 inches, right? So the way the scallops work is each scallop is 1 inch, and for one scallop thing, you need 10 stitches. So it's whatever measurement you got, for example, 18 stitches times 10. So I'm going to cast on 180 stitches. So whatever measurement one side of you is, times 10. That's how many stitches you need to cast on. And I would recommend the simplest way and to make it like flow nicely is measure the widest part of your body, wherever that is. Once you cast on your stitches, you're going to purl the entire row. Just purl it. So I cast on 180 stitches, right? If you cast on 300 or more stitches, you might need to buy longer knitting needles. For example, if your total inches of the widest part of your body is 60 inches or more, which then equals 30 when it's divided by half, and then that's 300 stitches, they're not going to physically fit on your knitting needle unless you buy bigger, longer knitting needles, or you skip this scallop step altogether. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to start by just knitting 2 stitches. Very simple. Then I'm going to knit a 3rd stitch, right? And once I've knit it, I'm going to slip it back onto my previous knitting needle, pick up the next stitch, bring it over without knitting it, and kind of keep it hanging there. Just like that. Once I've did the loop over 7 times, you're gonna switch your yarn to the front of the needle, and you're going to knit a stitch with the yarn in the front. And I like to pull pretty tight Not that tight, but not loose. So you're just going to knit like regular, but it's going to be from the front of your needle. So it's just a regular knit stitch. And then you're going to do another 2 knit stitches. And the second one, you're going to bring back to the other side, and you're going to put 7 over all over again. If this helps, I used this like pattern for the scallops from a blog post. It's slightly different. She does a little bit, I'll explain later. But if it helps to have a written version, or you think I'm explaining it badly, I'll leave it in the description. And you might want to kind of evenly distribute the stitches a little bit, kind of like what I'm doing right now, because if you pull too tightly, you're going to end up with the ones near the edge really loose and the ones near the front really tight, and then your scallops will be kind of weird looking. It should be fine. And you're going to keep doing this for however many stitches you have. Once you're done, it should look something like this, and we're going to turn the work around and do the back. This is probably one of the most difficult parts of the entire dress, so don't feel intimidated. It gets easier from here. We're going to start by doing 1 purl, and then in that weird, and we're going to do another purl, second purl stitch, and then we're going to do a third one, but we're not going to pull off. Instead, we're going to wrap around the back and go through like that. And then we're going to pick up the yarn again and purl it again. So the point is, you're trying to have 3 stitches in that 1 stitch. I'm going to do it again here. We're going to, and you're going to purl again. Instead of pulling it off, go around the back and purl into the back. And then get the yarn off the thing, pick it back up, and purl again. Just like that. And then you're going to do 2 purls in between and do that again. Just take it slowly and try to do what I do. Once you're done with that, you're going to turn your work around and do the next row just regular knit. So you're just going to knit the whole row. Once you're done, you are going to turn your work around and purl the back. Once you're done with that, you're going to turn it around, do 1 more row of knit, turn it around, do 1 more row of purl. So you should have 4 rows in total after your scallop things. So you're going to start by slipping to the first 2 stitches. So to do this, you're just going to put your needle through the back of the stitch and pull it off. And then now we're going to take our other color, the dark purple, and you're going to knit 1 stitch like that. And then, I don't know why you said knit 1 stitch. You're going to knit 11 stitches in total. Make sure you don't tug on it too hard that the tail goes away, like, flies through. But basically you're just going to knit 11 stitches. Then you're going to slip the next 2 stitches and you're going to knit 11 more stitches. This is slightly tricky because you're just going to knit like normal, right? And then you're going to wrap the yarn around, but instead of pulling through, you're going to find the part where you skip the 2 stitches and you're going to pull and make a little loop. This is to make sure that it doesn't tug and doesn't make this crinkled mess, because because you're skipping 2 stitches, there needs to be some yarn to accommodate the space that you skipped. It's better to tug more, like have more yarn in your little loop, than less. It looks like it's too much, but it's not. It really kind of sinks into the yarn because this yarn is like bamboo. It's kind of slippery, so it really like slides. Just make sure to remember to do that, or otherwise your yarn and your knitting is going to be all bunched up. Once you're done, you're going to flip your work around and just purl the back. You should not have if you're doing 180 stitches, if you cast on 180 stitches, you shouldn't have an even 11 when you finish. So just, however many you cast on, knit until it's done, and then I'll tell you what to do later. For the gap, you're doing the same thing. You're going to purl once, half purl the other one, pull a loop out, and then keep purling. In this like mosaic style pattern thing, you're only going to do new things on the front. On the back, when you're purling, you're just going to purl whatever you knit on the front. So that's just for the entire dress. That's the basic rule. Okay, so once you're done with that row, you're going to turn it around and you can do the knit side, and you're going to do your light purple color. So I'm starting by knitting the 2, and then I'm going to slip 1 stitch, and then I'm going to knit 9 stitches. If it's helpful, there's a written pattern for this. I used someone's blog post. I'll leave the link in the description. The only difference is I put 2 knit stitches between each of these box things. They just did 1. So if you're using the written pattern, keep that in mind. Make sure you're aware of where you're knitting if you want to have the spaces in between the boxes like I do. So you're doing 9 stitches, and then you're going to slip the purple stitch and you're going to knit 2 more in between, slip the dark purple stitch, knit 9 more, and you're going to continue this for the rest of the row. And remember, whatever you do on the front, you're going to do on the back, just with purl. So you're doing exactly the same thing on the back. So I did the purl, and I'm on my next knit row, which is the dark purple. So I'm slipping the first 2 stitches, and I'm going to take my dark purple and knit the first stitch, and then I'm going to slip 1 light purple stitch, and then I'm going to knit 7 dark purple stitches. And once you get to the end and you have that weird like half box, just do as many as you can. So like instead of knitting 7 purple, if you can only knit 3, do that. And remember to keep pulling it out. If there's a little bit of like tug because you didn't make the loops big enough, that's fine. Over time it should kind of settle down. Mine did, because especially because this yarn is so like slippery, it kind of settles into place, and you can always block it if you need to. And remember, whatever you're doing in the front, you're going to purl in the back. So I'm doing the exact same thing I'm doing it in the front, just I'm purling it on the back, on the way back. Okay, so now I'm knitting, and with my light purple, I knit the first two, slip the next one, knit the next light purple, slip the dark purple, and then I'm knitting 5 light purples. You should kind of see the pattern by now. Every time you basically decrease 2. And then I'm going to slip the dark purple, knit the light purple, slip the dark purple, knit 2 light purple. And remember, I'm doing the same thing in the back that I'm doing in the front, just purling it. Okay, so I'm slipping the first 2 and I'm back on the dark purple. Sorry, it kind of goes out of shot a little bit. And this time I'm doing everything like normal, and then in the center I'm knitting 3 dark purple stitches. And in general, I'm keeping my tension kind of tight, especially with this type of yarn. There's less room for error because it's not like fluffy or anything, and it's pretty small, so I'm keeping my tension pretty tight. The most important thing is to be consistent on your purls and on your knits. I know some people have different tension when they do their knitting versus purling side, so just try to be consistent. And for these 2 rows, I'm doing the light purple again, and basically I'm only doing 1 light purple in the very center. So every other stitch I'm alternating except for the 2 light purple stitches in between the boxes. And sorry for my sister's wallets in the background and her AirPods. I don't know why I didn't notice that, but you can see what I'm doing at the corner of my screen. Okay, so now we're going to do the opposite. I'm slipping the first 2 stitches and I'm going with my dark purple, and this time we're going to do our normal dark purple, slip, dark purple, slip, and then we're going to do 3 stitches of dark purple in the center. So we're going back, basically what we did before. And then slip, dark purple stitch, and remember to keep pulling in between your boxes. With my light purple, I'm going in and I'm knitting and then slipping, and in the center you're doing your 5 light purple stitches. I'm really sorry for the bad camera work. I am buying a new tripod. I am currently filming using a stack of books on top of a little dresser thing that I have. So, not very professional, but I'm getting a tripod soon. So hopefully my videos will be more in shot. But you're doing the 5 light purple stitches in the center. So you're just doing the opposite of what you did before. Okay, so you should get the gist of what we're doing, and we're going to skip ahead a little bit to when the reason that stitch is a little messed up is because it fell off my knitting needle and I put it on the wrong way. Shouldn't look like that. Once you're done with the boxes, you finished your last 11 purple stitches, what you're going to do is you're just going to knit straight across, and then on the back do the same thing, purl straight across, all in your light purple color. If you have any questions, by the way, first of all, look at the pattern. It's written, it's very helpful. It'll be in the description. I didn't write it, I just copied theirs. But, or leave me a comment. So once you're done, you are going to start on the next set of boxes. I cast, you can't do it exactly in the center because it's an even amount or an odd amount or whatever. So I start by casting 6 stitches, and then I do the 2 slip stitches, and then I cast on my full 11, making sure to keep that weird loop thing. So yeah, you're casting on 11, then you're going to do the 2 slip stitches and continue for the rest of the row. Okay, so I knit this pattern for 19 inches. That's how long I wanted it to be from where I wanted it to hang on my legs, right? How long I want it to be, and my waist, because now I'm gonna go in. So I'm knitting 1 stitch, and then I'm knitting 2 together, and then I'm gonna continue with the pattern. That's how you basically decrease a stitch. I'm only doing this because I want it to go in on my waist. If your waist is the same measurement as your hips, or your waist was the widest part of your body, then don't do this. I'm only doing this because I want the dress to go in on my waist, and I like form-fitting things. Obviously, you don't have to. And I did 19 inches because I liked the length. You can see from the pictures in the thumbnail where it falls in my body. I am tall. So maybe just measure for yourself. And once I get to the other side, I'm doing the same thing. I'm waiting until there's 3 stitches on my hook, and I am knitting 2 together and then knitting the last one. So this is what it should look like. I decreased 11 stitches on each side. Don't worry about the colors being slightly messed up because you're going to sew them together and you won't be able to see it, I promise. So just try to make it as, following the pattern as possible. If it's slightly messed up, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Once you're done with that, you're going to knit 4 or 5 more inches. Basically, you're going to knit until it measures from where you want it to hang to where your armpits are. So first of all, make sure you don't make it too short, or you can make it as short as you want, obviously, but just measure it on your body, make sure it's the length that you want. And when you're measuring where your armpits are, make sure you don't measure too high up because you don't want it to be too tight. So give yourself like an inch. So an inch lower than when your armpits are. So from where you want it to hang on your legs to an inch below where your armpits are. And then you're going to do exactly the same thing again. You're going to take in 11 stitches on each side. For me, pretty much as soon as I was done dropping the 11 stitches on both sides, I started with the neckline. Make sure you measure it again, either from your armpits or all the way from your legs, where it's going to hang on your legs. Make sure that it's not too low for you. So make sure you measure that. For me, I started basically 2 rows after I finished the 11 stitches. Okay, so once I'm at a place I want, I'm going to knit along like I would regularly do. I kind of timed it so that this is a row that's all light purple. You don't have to do that. Okay, so you're gonna knit 35 stitches of your regular row, and then you're gonna cast off until you have 35 stitches left on your needle. So to cast off, you're just gonna put one yarn over the other stitch, knit another stitch, pick that stitch up, put it over. If you want the neckline to be more or less wide, you can obviously adjust this. But you're going to keep going until you have 35 stitches left on your needle. What you're gonna done with the casting off part, you're gonna knit the 35 remaining stitches like normal, slipping the dark purple and knitting the light purple for the rest of the row. Once you knit the rest of the row, you're gonna purl the way back, and then once you have 3 stitches left on your crochet hook, you are going to drop stitches like you did before, but this time you're going to make sure you're always going to have a purple stitch last, a light purple stitch, sorry, they're both purple, and this will create this nice little like border of our neckline, otherwise it might look a little messy. So as you can see, and when you are doing the dark purple like I am now, you're just going to slip that purple like normal, and you are going to have to pick up another dark purple because the other one's on the other side of your project. Once you're done, so I knit with the dark purple, I purled, and I'm on the purl side, and I'm going back, and again, I'm slipping that last light purple stitch, and then make sure not to tug this too tight, because you don't want to create any bumps. Again, you can always block your knitting when you're done, and they do tend to go away over time with this yarn. But make sure not to pull too tight with everything. So you're just going to knit once, and then I'm knitting these two together. And then you're going to keep going like this. Once you've combined / dropped enough stitches that you have 11 stitches left, then you're just going to knit straight up. Don't do anything else, just knit your pattern as normal. Once you have 11 stitches left on your needle, you're just going to knit straight up regularly, and then you're going to measure it. And once it's the length from the bottom, where you want it to hang on your legs, all the way to the top of your shoulder, that's when you're going to cast off. So what I'm measuring here is the back, but it's the same principle. You're just going to measure all the way up with your measuring tape. And for me, it happened to be 34 or 35 inches. It hangs pretty high up on me. It's a little short, I don't know, maybe for most people, but I'm also pretty tall. So measure in yourself. And here I'm just casting off. Once we're done with one side, now we're going to move on to the other side. So I'm kind of picking up this stitch here, the first stitch that you cast off, because otherwise there's this weird kind of gap, which is ugly. So I just put it on my needle. If you have a crochet hook, you should just use that. I do, and I didn't, which is kind of stupid. But you could just put this on your knitting needle and knit it, like purl it. Or you can do what I did, which is just kind of like thread it through like that. So I put both ends on the other side of this and I pulled a loop through it. And now I'm just going to put that loop on. Oh, I'm going to pull one string through it, and then pull the other one tight, and now you kind of have your starting string. And now you're going to use that yarn to do the rest of the other side with. Since we already knit one side, now we're going to purl the back side. So just start purling, purl the whole row. Make sure that the yarn, that string doesn't come out, because then you have to do this process all over again. So just make sure it doesn't fall out. And I'm just going to purl the rest of the row. Once you're done with that row, we're going to pick up the dark purple starting on the other side. So you should, in theory, you should have a purple there. I cut mine to use the other side, so I'm just going to tie it and use that yarn. This yarn is pretty slippery, so just be a little bit cautious when you're just tying it like that. Or, you know, don't cut it to begin with. Be smart. Because you don't want it to slip out. So I'm actually doing like a triple knot. And then I'm going to take my dark purple, and exactly like before, you're just knitting, I don't know how many stitches, I think it's like 6 dark purples. Just make sure it lines up with the one below. And then I'm going to do the whole row until I get to the last couple stitches. So you're doing the same thing as you did on the other side. I'm just knitting the dark purple like normal, and then so here I don't really have a place to put them to knit two together because I want to keep the pattern intact. But in theory, you would knit two together. Okay, I'm turning it back around and I'm gonna go back with the purple. So I'm slipping the light purple and making sure to keep it tight. And again, I can't really knit two together because it's the wrong I don't know, area, like the pattern would look bad. Okay, so you're gonna do basically everything again for the back, except for this time you're gonna stop a little bit earlier. So this is a low back, so I'm measuring from the bottom to where I want it to stop, and for me it's around 21 inches. You can obviously make it a lot higher or lower depending on what kind of back you want. But once you have knit 21 or 22 inches or however much you want, I'm going to start casting off 3 stitches. I'm going to go to exactly the middle, and then I'm going to cast off 3 stitches. And then I'm going to knit the rest of the row regular. Okay, so I've knit the front part, I've purled the back until I have 2 stitches left, and now I knit them together. And this is the same thing as you did for the front neckline. You're just doing it for the back, and you're doing it before you do the armholes. So before you decrease on the sides for the arms, you're going to do this, because obviously it's a low back, so it's lower than where your arms are. And you're doing exactly the same thing. So you're just going to pick up the purple and knit 1, knit 2 together, and make sure to slip the light purple. Once I have 20 stitches on my needle and it measures from the bottom all the way to the top where my armpit is, remember, do it a little bit lower, otherwise it's going to pinch. But as you can see, I'm lining up with the bottom and I'm measuring. And it's 27 inches for me. Keep in mind, my dress on me is kind of short. So if you like that, that's good. I'm also kind of tall. So keep those both into consideration. I would recommend measuring yourself. I would keep measuring. That's the only way you can make sure it'll fit you. Just measure, measure, measure. Anyway, so now I'm going to do the same thing you did on the armholes before you did the neckline on the front part. You're going to slip 1, and then I'm going to knit the rest like regular until I have the 2 remaining stitches, and I'm going to knit those together. For this armhole on the back, I kind of did this first, so I decided to have like a border on the armhole as well, which is completely unnecessary. You don't need to do that. You can have 2 more stitches left and knit them both together, or you can do what I did and always have a border arm on the armhole like that. So like you have kind of like a border on the neckline, you can do that. I don't recommend it. It ends up looking kind of bad. I would just knit the last 2 stitches together instead of one, I don't know, outline, and then you knit 2 stitches together. But whatever you want is fine. It doesn't really make much of a difference. Once you have 11 stitches left, like the front, you are going to keep knitting straight up. And then I knit for 35 inches, so the whole dress is totaling 35 inches, obviously measuring it on yourself, and then I'm going to cast off. Once you're done with that, you are going to do the other side, And exactly the same thing as before, except for this time I'm not picking up any stitches. I'm just knitting like normal. I'm adding the light purple. But I'm doing the same thing as before. And we're just knitting the purl side of the row we already knit. And I'm just knitting two together, or sorry, purling two together. And then I'm doing the rest of the row like normal. Once you're done with that row, you're going to pick up your purple, dark purple, sorry, they're both purple. And you're just going to knit the row like normal. We're adding the boxes now, so make sure everything lines up. And you're going to do exactly the same thing you did on the other side. I'm going to keep knitting this row, and then I'm going to try to knit two together every time you get to the neckline, but for the back. And then once you have 27 inches in total, I'm going to drop the stitches from the side until I have 11 stitches left, and then I'm going to knit until I have 35 inches. Exactly the same thing you did before. And then you're done. And then you're going to cast off, and then you're done. Once you're done with the two sides, now you're going to sew them together. So I'm going to take my embroidery needle. It doesn't really matter what type of needle it is, it just needs, the head part needs to be big enough to fit this thread. Sorry, it's kind of out of focus, but I'm just going to thread my embroidery needle, and then I'm going to stitch it up. So obviously you could use either color. You're not going to really see the stitching. I wouldn't use some random like green color. Use one of the two because you'll see it a little bit. And you're going to take both pieces and you're going to face them inside out. So you want the outside facing you and the insides facing each other. And I'm just going to line up the straps part first. And then you're just going to do, I think it's called like an overhand stitch. I'm not entirely sure what it's called, but just a really basic stitch. And I'm tying these two kind of to anchor it. You don't have to do this. You can like weave in the ends once you're done, if you want to be like fancy about it. I didn't, so. But basically I'm just putting my needle through the two of them, pulling so the yarn goes over the top, and putting my needle in through the next two. Just like that. And you're going to do this on both straps, like both sides of the straps. And make sure the insides are facing each other. Then you're going to line up where the armpits start on both sides. And you're going to sew down the whole, both sides of the dress, just like you did before. And this is the finished look.